that we just haven't had a lot of time to really look into, mostly on the constraints that DoD at large place upon an organization such as Futures Command. We've gotten, I think we think we hit the big ones, but there are still some that are outside of the Futures Command control, which actually they can be as efficient and optimal as ever, but these other constraints somewhat hurt the overall performance that they can achieve. And we're gonna mention that.
Are you going to touch on the ASALT interaction?
We will touch on that. We will touch on that. That obviously is a situation that does need to be resolved, and the only person that can resolve it is the secretary. So we're doing what we can to push that along.
Got it. Well, look, it'll be published like all the other FACA board findings, will it not?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, that's the intention. Sometimes these things, because of sensitivity, there's a report that's published and a report that has other details. But I haven't seen anything that's going to hurt this report.
Well, hopefully we'll get to take a look at it. We could use all the insight that we can get to move things along.
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you for getting up at 7 a.m. and talking with us. It looks like you were up at midnight last night, so I don't know how much sleep you got, but we'll try to go easy on you.
Okay.
My two colleagues and I'll just give you context on what we're doing, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. So I have been doing national security related research at NYU for the last 5 years or so. So when I sold my company, I joined NYU, focusing on this topic of improving DoD's innovation competitiveness. And this is right about the same time that the Defense Innovation Initiative was announced, actually a little bit before that. And then growing out of the early work that we did at NYU, we had formulated a set of recommendations in a summer study that Ash Carter picked up and turned into something called the MD5 National Security Technology Accelerator. I came over to DoD for a period of time to help stand that up, but have maintained my affiliation with NYU throughout. So when I'm finished with AFC, I'll revert back to NYU and continue to do what I have been doing. This specific activity relates to a book that we're writing on the changing dynamics of competitiveness and innovation in the national security community and DoD in particular. And we're looking at the impacts of technology convergence on business models for innovation in the DoD. So how does DoD need to change how it does business in order to either capitalize on or mitigate the effects of the type of technology convergence and technology acceleration that we see taking place today, not just in our peer adversaries, but in the markets and universities and broader technology ecosystem around the world. So what we're setting out to do is talk to some folks who have lived through the formative stages of how DoD is dealing with the new technology reality. And I mean, part of my contention, at least, is that the things that are manifesting today actually got their start in the early 2000s, when we started to see the emergence of IEDs and different type of competition on the battlefield. And you were running DARPA. I mean, you pivoted DARPA at that time around the more rapid technological, how do we leverage emerging technologies more rapidly to support these unanticipated or unanticipatable types of threats that we're seeing. So we thought that would be a very useful conversation for us to have with you around this piece that we're working on. And then Bal and Bharat, you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. This is Bharat Rao. I'm a professor at New York University at the School of Engineering. And my research really looks at emerging technologies as well as innovation models, both in small and large organizations.
Hi, I'm Bala Molla. I'm a faculty at the Frank Patton School of Leadership and Public Policy at the University of Virginia. I study innovation and social entrepreneurship.
Good.
So, sir, do you mind if we, and we won't publish anything without getting your review on it first, but for purposes of capturing the data, do you mind if we record this?
No, it's okay.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions for us before I launch in on a set of questions?
No, I don't. Go ahead.
All
right. I think I know what you're doing.
Okay. Well, bear with me one second.
It's not the first time that somebody has done it.
No, we keep coming back to the well. So there's obviously a lot of material, as you say, out there on DARPA and the DARPA model of innovation and how the larger DoD bureaucracy could potentially learn lessons from DARPA, as well as the commercial marketplace learning lessons from how DARPA innovates. But we'd like to hear in your own words, if you could succinctly describe what is the DARPA model of innovation and what do you believe makes it effective?
Well, you know what? It's really interesting. First of all, I've been involved in gee, I don't know. I guess I didn't even think about it, but it's probably pushing 50 years, and a lot of that has been interacting with DARPA because they are a good source of people who do this, but. The thing is that everybody, I think, looks at the wrong part of the problem. I mean, you start talking about innovation technologies, and really, they're a result. Okay, they're a result, and I haven't found over the 50 years that there's a magic technique, but there are some questions that I have found that are things that will drive innovation. It will drive it because it's not that you're looking at the technology itself, but you are really describing what is the problem that we have to solve. Okay. So I think I've always felt, and in fact, what I did at DARPA and what DARPA does is that we really start out with figuring out what is the problem. Now the problem can range from very large philosophical problems like how can we prevent the Chinese from having a greater force than us, and that's almost too large. Okay, I mean it is the problem. It is a problem, and it's a good question to first start from and to break yourself down. But based upon my experience, innovation is the result of the need to find a solution for removing an impediment preventing something from being done, or the desire or curiosity to find the solution on how or why something works. Okay. There's the old saw that necessity is the mother of invention, and that is still true today and will always be true. And both of these can be characterized as a need or necessity to solve problems that need to be solved, such as finding a solution to remove an impediment, or simply why something is what it is, such as why is the sky blue? Okay. And everybody wants a procedure, Now, I have an approach, and it's an approach that actually was first. It's an approach that I guess DARPA has used from the very beginning because of the way it was created. But the first time that it was really written down was with George Heilmeyer, who was the DARPA director in the middle 1970s. Okay, and these things that George wrote down have been refined and added to over the years, and I'll go into a little bit of more detail on that. But let me tell you how George, the Heilmeyer questions, how they came about. Okay? And this is from George himself. Okay, so this is not somebody saying what George said. This is me and George having a conversation. When he came into DARPA, we have offices, and one of the offices that was really a new office at that time was in computer science. Mm-hmm. And he told me that the guys with the computers would come up and give him these things to be signed, which were I've forgotten what he called them at that time, pads or something like that. And they would say, "I need this much money." And George would say, "Yeah, okay, but what are you going to do with it? I mean, what is the purpose of it? How will you know if you've been successful? Do you have any criteria for what it takes? And what is this problem?" And so he would send it back to him, and they would just send it back up again, and they would say, "Look, we're computer science people, and we don't need to do that. We just give us this money. We're going to go out and do computer science." And George says, "Well, you know what? I'm not going to give you the money unless you tell me what you're going to do with it." And so this went on for a while, according to George. And finally they came and said, "Okay, George, why don't you tell us what it is you want to know, and we'll do it." And George wrote down 7 questions, which became the sort of somewhat known in some circles as the Heilmeyer Catechism. Okay, and they have evolved over time. They have evolved over time, and I evolved them over time, okay, as well. I have found, and we found, that the first step in innovation is the question: what is the problem? Okay, and to have it be described using no jargon. Here's where people get into trouble. Okay, they want to describe, they have the problem, but then they use the jargon of the day to try to describe it, as opposed to not using the jargon, because it's easy to fool yourself if you're using the jargon that you think you're describing the problem. But the old adage, necessity is the mother of invention, or it can be of all invention and innovation, remains true today. Okay. Successful technology investments result in projects or capabilities that customers accept must begin with a detailed fact-based understanding of the necessity. Now, the problem may be solved in policy. I mean, it may be the solution may be on policy. There may be a requirement to develop some national capabilities to select technical areas to ensure future access or supply. But the problem in this case is access and supply, and it should be defined as such. So describing the problem in clear, understandable terms